story is Brave Irene by William Steig. Oh, Mrs. Bobbin, the dressmaker, was tired and had a bad headache, but she still managed to sew the last stitches on a gown she was making. "It is the most beautiful dress in the whole world," said her daughter Irene. "The Duchess will love it." "It's nice," her mother admitted, "but Dumpling, it is for tonight's ball, and I do not have the strength to bring it. I feel sick." "Oh, poor mamma," said Irene. "I will get it there." "No, Cupcake, I can't let you," said Miss Bobbin. "Such a huge package, and such a long way to the palace. Besides, it's starting to snow." "But I love the snow," Irene insisted. She coaxed her mother into bed, covered her with two quilts, and added a blanket for her feet. Then she fixed some tea with lemon and honey, and put more wood on the stove. With great care, Irene took the splendid gown down from the dummy and packed it into a big box with plenty of tissue paper. "Dress warmly, Pudding," her mother called in a weak voice, "and don't forget to button up. It's cold out there, and windy." Irene put on her fleece-lined boots, her red hat and muffler, her heavy coat, her mittens. She kissed her mother's hot forehead 6 times, and then once again to make sure she was tucked in snugly, and slipped out with a big old box, shutting the door firmly behind her. It was really cold outside. Very cold, and the wind whirled the falling snowflakes about, this way and that way, and into Irene's squinting face. She set out on the uphill path for Farmer Bennett's sheep pasture. But by the time she got there, the snow was up to her ankles, and the wind was worse. It hurried her along and made her stumble. Irene resented this. The box was problem enough. "Easy does it," she cautioned the wind, leaning back hard into the wind. By the middle of the pasture, the flakes were falling thicker. Now the wind drove Irene along so rudely that she had to hop, skip, and go helter-skeltering over the knobbly ground. Cold snow sifted into her boots and chilled her feet, but she pushed her lip up and hurried on. This was an important errand. When she reached Apple Road, the wind decided to put on a show. It ripped branches from the trees and flung them about, swept up and scattered fallen snow, got in front of Irene to keep her from moving ahead, and Irene turned around and pressed on, backwards. "Go home," the wind squalled. "Irene, go home." "I will do no such thing," she snapped. "No such thing, you wicked wind." "Go home," the wind hollered. "Go home," it shrieked. "Or else." For a short second, Irene wondered if she shouldn't heed the wind's warning. But oh no, this gown had to get to the Duchess. And just then, the wind wrestled from her package, walloped it, twisted it, shook it, and snatched at it. But Irene would not yield. "It is my mother's work," she screamed, and then, oh, whoa! The box was wrenched from her mitten grasp and sent bumping along the snow. Irene went after it. She pounced and took hold, but the ill-tempered wind ripped the box open. The ball gown flounced over and was waltzing through the powdered air, and the tissue paper attendants followed behind. Irene clung to the empty box and watched the beautiful gown disappear. How could anything go so terribly wrong be allowed to happen? Tears froze to her lashes. Her dear mother's hard work, all those days of measuring, cutting, pinning, stitching. For this? Oh, and the poor Duchess! Irene decided that she would have to trudge with or without the box, and just explain everything in person. She went shuffling through the snow. Oh, would her mother understand, she wondered, that the wind's fault, it was not hers, and that the Duchess was angry? but the wind was howling like a wild animal. Suddenly, Irene stepped into a hole and fell over with a twisted ankle. Oh, she blamed it on the wind. Keep quiet, she scolded. You've done enough of damage already. You've spoiled everything. Everything. The wind swallowed up her words. She sat in the snow in great pain, afraid that she would not be able to go on. But she managed to get to her feet and start moving again. Well, it hurt. Home, where she longed to be, where she and her mother could be warm together, was far behind. It got to be closer to the palace, she thought, but where? Any place. In all this snow. She couldn't be sure. She had no idea where she was, hoping she was getting closer. She plowed on, dragging furrows with her sore foot. The short winter day was almost done. Am I still even going in the right direction, she wondered. There was no one around to advise her, and whoever else there was in this snow-covered world was far, far away, and probably safe indoors. Even the animals in their burrows. But she went padding on. Soon night took over. She knew the dark, that the muffled snow was still falling. She could feel it. She was cold and alone in the middle of nowhere. Irene was lost. She had to keep moving. She was hoping that she would come to a house, any house at all, and that she would be taken in. She badly needed to be in someone's arms. The snow was above her knees now. She shoved her way through it, clutching the empty box. She was asking how long a small person could keep the struggle up when she realized it was getting lighter. There was a soft glow coming from somewhere below her. She waded towards this glow, and soon she was gazing down a long slope in a brightly lit mansion. That had to be the palace. Irene pushed forward with all of her strength, and then whoosh, thump, she plunged downward and was buried. She had fallen off a little cliff, only to have her hat and the box in her hand sticking out of the snow. Even if she could call for help, no one would hear her. Her body shook, her teeth chattered. Oh, why not freeze to death, she thought, and let all these troubles end? Why? Why not? Oh, she was already buried. But she would never see her mother's face again. Her good mother, who smelled like fresh baked bread. An explosion of fury. She flung her body above her to free herself, and finally, she was able to climb up onto her knees and look around. How to get down that glittering palace? As soon as she raised the question, she had the answer. She laid the box down and climbed aboard, but when it pressed into the snow and stuck, she tried again, and this time, instead of climbing on, she leapt, and the box took off, just like a sled. The wind raced after Irene, but it couldn't keep up, and in a moment she would be with people again, inside where it was warm. The sled slowed and jerked to a stop on the paving stones. The time had come to break the bad news to the Duchess. With the empty box clasped in her chest, Irene strode nervously towards the palace. But then her feet stopped, and her mouth dropped open, and she stared. Maybe, was this been possible? Yet there it was, a little way off and over to the right, hugging the trunk of a tree, the beautiful ball gown. The wind was holding it there. Mama, she cried, I found it, I found it. But she managed somehow, despite all the wind's meddling, to get that gown off of the tree and back into the box. And in another moment, she was at the door of the palace. She knocked twice with the big brass knockers, and the door opened, and she burst in. She was welcomed by cheering servants and a deliriously happy Duchess. They couldn't believe that she had come over the mountain in such a storm all by herself. She had to tell the whole story, every detail, and she did. Even then, she was asked to be taken right back to her sick mother. But it was out of the question, they said. The road had run around the mountain wouldn't be cleared till morning. Don't fret, child, said the Duchess. Your mother is surely sleeping now, and we will get you there first thing in the morning." Irene was given a good dinner as she sat by the fire, the moisture steaming off her clothes. The Duchess, meanwhile, got into her freshly ironed gown before the guests began to arrive in their sleighs. Oh, what a wonderful ball it was! The Duchess in her new gown was like a bright star in the sky. Irene, in her ordinary dress, was just as radiant. She was swept up into dances by handsome aristocrats who kept her feet off the floor to spare her ankle, and her mother would enjoy hearing all about tonight. And early the next morning, when the snow had long since ceased falling, Mrs. Bobbin woke up from a good night's rest feeling much improved. She hurried about and got the fire going in the cold stove, and then she went to look for Irene. But Irene's bed was empty. She ran to the window and gazed out the white landscape. No one was out there. Snow powder fell from the branches of a tree. "Where is my child?" Mrs. Bobbin said, and she whipped open her coat and went to find her, and when she was pulling the door open, a wall of drift faced her. But peering over it, she could see a horse-drawn sleigh hastening up the path, and seated in the sleigh, between the two large footmen, was Irene herself, asleep but smiling. Would you like to hear the rest? Well, there was a bearded doctor in the back of the sleigh, and the Duchess had sent to Irene's mother a ginger cake with white icing, some oranges and a pineapple, and spice candy of many flavors, along with a note saying how much she cherished her gown and what a brave and loving person Irene was. Which, of course, Miss Bobbin already knew better than the Duchess could ever know. The